And this is a committed group.
They are, and I'm very
All right, let's
appreciative
call
of
this
it.
meeting to order. So
Should
I've
be
got a
good.
little after 5:30. Won't say exactly how many minutes I was late. But we'll go ahead and get this meeting underway. This is the Volunteer Fire Department Ad-Hoc Committee meeting. It's December 9th, and we'll call to order. So, invocation. Chris, you mind? Anybody invocation?
Is there bird?
Sure, absolutely. Father in heaven, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to do the work of the people. This particular ad hoc committee has a big job, from a lot of passing of time that this thing should have been fixed a long time ago. We ask you to give us the wisdom to move forward with this in the best speed possible. We ask all this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, thank you. Okay, approval of the agenda.
Motion.
So moved and
Second.
All right, so any discussion on that? Seeing none, all right, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we have an agenda, approval of the minutes from our last meeting, November 19th.
Approved, nope, so moved.
Motion, I got a second?
Second.
All right, so second, Mr. Williams. All right, so any discussion on minutes? Nope, okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, all right. Okay, so recognition of public, we got one signed up. Is there anybody else that wishes to sign up? No, okay. Mr. McLaughlin, it's all you, sir. 5 minutes.
Should we set a
Not
time?
a second more.
Yeah.
Joe McLaughlin, 2238 Highway 25, Cottontown. Some points from last month's meeting. Comptroller reports. Don't get sidetracked by who is or isn't filing these reports. Making the completion of this report a criteria for receiving funding is fine. This report was implemented due to a few volunteer fire departments having financial problems, such as members stealing money and other illegal activities involving their funding. When this happens, it winds up with the comptroller because it involves a nonprofit organization. This report has been required by the comptroller for 10 years. There is no follow-up by the comptroller about missing reports. There are volunteer fire departments that aren't listed on the report search list on their website. Budgets. Budgets are a formality for the volunteer fire departments. You need to look closer at annual expenses and what money is being spent on and not being spent on. What test or maintenance is being put off because we can't afford it. Remember, volunteer fire departments have a checking account and maybe a savings account. Our finances don't operate like the county. We spend money on the necessities, what it takes to keep the doors open and apparatus on the road. If we don't have the money, we don't spend. Another thing to remember, if apparatus has to go into the shop on unplanned maintenance or emergency repairs, we have to have the money to pay for it when we pick it up. Grants. Should the volunteer fire departments be applying for grants? Absolutely. However, grants aren't the silver bullet for financing. Grants alone are not the sole answer to buying equipment, especially the FEMA Assistance to Firefighter grant. That grant is the most competitive grant program administered by FEMA. It's not like the grants received by EMA, where Ken Widener comes to the county commission and says all we need to do is apply and we get the funding. A high priority of the FEMA grant is to replace outdated equipment such as SCBA's turnout gear and apparatus because it's considered a safety hazard. However, it not only looks at the age of the equipment, it also takes into consideration call volume. In the case of SCBA's, how many fires over the past 3 years has the department responded to? So if you only respond to 5 fires a year, you'll be rated lower than the department with the same age equipment but responding to 20 fires a year, all other things being equal. And the grading criteria may change the next year. There's also a limit to the number of SCBA's that can be requested in the grant. That number is based on the number of apparatus seats. I started writing the grant for Cottontown's new SCBA's and turnout gear in 2014 when they were already 2 years past the recommended replacement. I waited because of our low fire call volume. We We were finally successful in 2017. Our grants in 2014, 15, and 16 were not denied or turned down. Each year we received a letter stating that we were on the award list, but the money ran out before they got to our name. The same happened more recently when I wrote grants to replace our tanker. It took 4 years until we were successful, and I attribute that success to adding a statement in the narrative showing how many mutual aid calls the tanker was responding to. I've written about 19 FEMA assistance to firefighter grants since 2002, attended numerous online and in-person FEMA-sponsored seminars specific to the assistance to firefighter grant, and been successful on 5. 2 for apparatus, 2 for turnout gears and SCBAs, and 1 for loose equipment. We were flat out rejected on 4, and 2 of those I found out after attending a seminar. I was answering a question the wrong way. They specifically talked about how to answer that question. The remainder, we ranked high enough to be on the award list, but the money ran out before they got to our name. From listening to FEMA seminars and reading FEMA newsletters, this is a good track record for our size department. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right, so that is public recognition. So old business, the funding ideas for the VFDs, we deferred that to January, so we're just gonna move past that. It'll stay on old business and we'll bring that up next month. So moving on to new business. So today's meeting, we're gonna do, essentially it's a study session. So I know we talked about last time, our last meeting was the importance of establishing a baseline. And so that's really what we wanna start doing, is understanding where we are today, and, you know, do we have the information we need, and do we need anything else, and then how do we want to start moving forward? So that's what we want to do this evening, is start understanding that baseline. And so before we start to open the hood, I just want to say there'll probably be some things that'll come up, and it's just not indictments on any one department or volunteer fire departments in any way. There's an invaluable service, and it's in no way are these negative comments. It's just there's probably things that are pointed out, like, hey, somebody may say deficiency here or something there, but in no way is it an indictment on any one department. So I just want to put that out there for the record. So anyhow, so let's start off, and I guess we can just kind of go around, and you know, everybody. First, did everybody able to access the online share drive?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
once the link was updated, yeah.
Yeah, user error on my part. Yeah, so so we've got that. So everybody had access. So was everybody able to review everything that was out there? There's a lot of information. So
There was a lot of information.
I'll say we reviewed some. I won't say any of us reviewed all of it.
okay.
No, I didn't read every word.
Yeah.
I read a lot of them.
Okay. So I think it's good we can just go around the table and, you know, hey, what stood out, and then we can kind of start from there, and then we can, once everybody chimes in, then we can start discussing more or less kind of like, hey, where are we at, and then what do we think our next step should be as far as a baseline goes. All right? Any volunteers to start?
I think we had asked Chief to try to get us some of the baseline as far as assets and liabilities and stuff from all the departments. But I know we've got some holidays and stuff in there. How much of that were we able to get?
I'm sitting about a response from about half of the agencies.
Okay.
So we've got a chief's meeting Thursday night. Going to come together, talk a little bit more about what's expected, follow up with those who I haven't heard from, and then the goal is by next meeting to have it all spreadsheeted out so I can share it with the committee here.
And you probably can't say exactly what's going to be on it, but what are you talking about? Costs? Are you talking about needs? What do you?
Well, what we're looking for from the last meeting was some baseline data, such as how many people, stations, do they own the station? Are they leasing it from somebody?
Okay.
Number of apparatus, age, things like that. So that's the data I'm gathering right now.
Okay. Okay. I have a request, and I'm not picking on anybody, but since I'm not in the fire department business, I looked up SCBA's while Chief was talking, and that is a self-contained breathing apparatus. Maybe when anybody starts using abbreviations like that, you can start by saying, okay, this is a self-contained breathing apparatus. We call it an SCBA. And then that'll help me a lot.
I don't think that'll be a problem in the
Okay.
future.
I think we can de-acronym.
Okay.
Yeah, there's another acronym that you'd be interested in, TMA.
TMA?
Yeah, too many acronyms.
The biggest glaring thing that I saw from the financial reports themselves were we have a couple of departments, one in particular that's much better funded than the rest, and I know that is because they're cross-county. They get funding from another county besides Sumner. The difference in their funding is minuscule when you're considering what a fire department would get, especially if you, I don't know how many members were able to look at the spreadsheet that I sent about where different counties fund at different levels. The amount of difference between the age of their trucks, SCBA, and gear compared to even, say, a Shackle Island or an Oak Grove, for the amount of money that they get per station, I think over there it's roughly around, they get about 125 to 150,000 total in their budget for the 3 stations, so it ends up being about 450,000 a year total that they receive. All of their trucks are in date, all of their gear is in date, all of their SCBAs are in date. I'm sure some of that is going to be also because of the officer positions and the officers that they've been able to hold on to throughout the years. But for it to be that small of a difference in funding compared to some of the other departments, it's a drastic difference in what they've been able to accomplish with that funding.
Now, you're talking about White House Community?
I am.
So, digging into it, I was looking at it earlier, and you're dead on as far as their equipment. But aren't they also sitting at like $600,000 in debt right now?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a big difference there as well.
They also have the ability to go in debt, whereas the Sumner County departments do not have that ability without personal co-signers.
Yeah, because they don't have a guaranteed revenue.
Right.
Absolutely.
How are they able to go into debt
They have a contract,
with,
Robertson County.
okay, so that's where the leverage is so that they can go
yes.
into debt.
And that's one of the things that the last ad hoc committee had come, the reason why they had said that they would like the income, of course, increased, but they also really would like the contract that a lot of the other counties do with their fire departments, was because then they can take that contract to a bank and say, or I think a lot of the time it's the Department of Ag or wherever they get their loans from. It's not from normal banks normally. They actually get it through federal government. They're able to take that contract and say, we're going to get X amount of dollars for the next 5 years. So they can say that this is the income we're going to use to pay off that debt. And also, when it comes to capital purchases like that, when you're talking about $500,000, $550,000 for a fire engine, that is impossible for any department to be able to accomplish unless they save up that money beforehand.
Which is almost
And by the time they do that, then the price of that equipment is increased drastically compared to what the interest rate would be. Inflation right now is so surpassing what the interest is that it almost makes more sense to have a loan for something like that, because by the time, if they were to try to save up them funds for 5 years to do it, then the price is increased astronomically from what they could have purchased it for the 5 years previously, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
I spent a lot of time with this Tennessee comptroller of the Treasury, and I was astounded at the hoops that volunteer fire departments have to jump through based on the state of Tennessee. And then there are other hoops they have to jump through being nonprofits. I got to tell you that I was overwhelmed with what our group has to wrangle to get a hold of to understand their needs. I hate to disagree with Chief Joe, but I think budgets are critical for, if we're talking about funding in any way, shape, or form these fire departments, I think that the fire departments have to take a stab at a budget. They also have to follow all the rules. I don't know how you get around it. I understand that the comptrollers do not audit themselves all that well, but I know that being on a board that is for a nonprofit organization, if we don't follow the rules as a nonprofit, we can get in big trouble. I would think fire departments could get in similar trouble if they don't, have a board, have their at least annual meetings and those kinds of things.
I want to provide a point of clarification because I can't read Joe's mind. I've been trying for a long time, but I think I know what he was going with. We have budgets. I have to create one every year and get it approved by my board, and it's based off the prior year's expenditures, maybe adding 10% year over year. What he's kind of getting at is in the first month of the year, that might have been completely blown apart.
Sure.
So that's the challenge, is that we're certainly not trying to operate without budgets or any type of guidance. It's only as good as the piece of paper it's written on, because any unforeseen circumstance when we're dealing with the amount of revenue we are, let's just say an agency does no fundraising. So they're surviving off 24 a year. Well, let's say a pump goes out on a fire engine, boom, that budget's gone.
You're right.
So, but then, speaking about the comptroller's office, it's been my experience as a fire chief for the last 7 years. If you're not doing something the state wants you to do, you will hear from them. So it's a little bit of a surprise that there's a requirement that we aren't constantly hounded about. And I think a lot of folks were under the impression that we're given our budgets and our expenditures to the county every year as part of our request for the money. So I think a lot of us thought that sufficed. And now knowing that, hey, we also got to put this at the state, you can expect to see that going forward.
Yeah. And also, too, guys, I don't want to litigate the past on hey, this hasn't been happening. That's not the point of this committee. We need to focus on where are we at and how we want to move forward. So let's stay focused on that. There'll be some things that we may come up with recommendations, and then also to have, hey, as a requirement, you need to have both these boxes checked. And so that's the way to accomplish that. But to litigate that and go back and forth, I think we'll just spin our wheels. So let's stay focused on where are we at, and then let's focus on moving forward. Yes, sir. So.
I think the important point about budgets, and again, I don't want to speak for Joe, but my experience in dealing with budgets is that it simply deals with how much money you have and what you spend it on. It doesn't, like Joe said, it does not say what you couldn't do. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like collecting fire statistics. We report loss and we report deaths and injuries. We don't ever report what we saved, mm-hmm. or how many people didn't die because of what we did. Right? There's nothing positive in it. It's always after the fact and a negative. So I that's the way I interpret what Joe said about budgets. Yes, they're important and everyone's going to have them and you're held accountable for them. But there's got to be some other way for us to talk about what didn't get done with the funding that we were allocated.
So one thing I've noticed too, and just I didn't get to spend as much time as I wanted to going through the financials that we did have from the budget committee. Was there, I've gotten down, had a really good as far as the expenditures, income, expenditures, the breakouts, and it was great. But then there's a few others that as I was looking into, it's like you didn't really have that glimpse. You just had the budget, and so. Chief Magistrate, is that something that we can get, is income and expenses and a breakdown of those?
It's my understanding that we have to send that to the county.
Okay.
They were all
Maybe
there.
I missed it.
They were all there in each individual department. They were all there, but some were much more in depth than others, and
Okay.
it was, I think it was just the level of data that was provided, but I think they all hit that minimum threshold of this is what our expected income and these are our expected expenses, but
yeah.
they just, some were a whole lot more detailed than others.
Yeah.
So, in regards to your question, I think it is.
Okay.
Let me discuss with the group.
Okay, yeah, and I'll go back and check again. Again, I didn't spend as much time as I wanted to. But it was just, as I was glancing, I was like, man, it'd be great to see on the income side, like, essentially 4 buckets, so your fundraising, county, grants, and then just have another bucket, whether it's donations or whatever the case may be, outside of those 3 areas. So, and then on the expense side, have some different bucketed ways. But I like the way that Cottontown did it. To me, it was easy to digest. But yes, sir.
So I dug into the CTAS report pretty heavy. Because I think it helps us see, when was this done?
It was requested in 2018, 2019, and then we didn't get it until March of 21.
Okay, so 5 years old, 4 years old, somewhere in that effort. So, and there's several areas I highlighted I wanted to hit on because I think it shows us a real good example as to where we were then, and then some of it's going to see what progress has been made in that time period. And I agree with it. One comment here is with the amount of growth experienced and increased expectation from the citizens on a higher level of service is likely going to occur. I don't think there's anybody in this room that's going to disagree that the call volume has increased. I ran the statistics that were provided. As of right now, we're at a 5% increase for the county overall from last year on call volume alone. So there's that. When you go into this, each of the departments were interviewed. There were several areas that were touched on. There's 8 items that they specifically addressed. One was lack of staffing, difficulty recruiting and retaining. We all know that's a nationwide problem. Here's the big one: lack of consistent funding source for sustainment of operations, training, equipment, maintenance, and apparatus costs. And later on in here, it goes on specifically about some of the age of the equipment. Now, Chief Thornton, you'll be able to answer this question pretty quickly. Right now, what's the baseline timeline to, if I buy a fire truck today, for an engine, what am I looking at?
2 years.
At least 2 years,
So-
maybe 4.
What's
So-
the estimate of cost? I know my 550 was probably a little earlier.
Yes, I would love to buy a fire engine. I would say a commercial basic is probably gonna be close to 700.
So the point with that is when we start talking, some of these trucks are 20, 25 years old. Unfortunately, they're all maintenance costs is going up year over year over year. And unfortunately, even if the county says, hey, cool, everybody's buying a new truck today, we still got 2 years of trying to figure out and, put Band-Aids on them until we get there. Goes down specifically some of the individual departments. Highland, it said need to relocate Station 2 to New Deal Community. I believe y'all have got that done now. Oak Grove renovations fire station to increase base space. I believe that's either done or mostly done at this point. Number 1, Chief, you'll be able to answer this question. Need for renovation or new station equipped with indoor plumbing and storage. Has that been done since that point? Okay. And then Southeast, need to purchase an additional tanker placed in service. The renovations needed for both. So there's a lot of these that the guys have busted their butts and made some advancements on in different ways, and the county has chipped in and done, like Oak Grove's, but there's a lot to be done there still. Then it goes to where are we going? Organizational structure. How are we going to continue to do it? It gives us several options in there on page 7 of that CTAS report. It's just a matter of where are we going and how are we going to pay for it. But
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Nope,
I think there's an overarching question. And I too read the CTAS report in depth and noted all the deficiencies that they said were in there, and granted they were 4 or 5 years old and some of them have been remedied. But the overarching question in there was the question of political will. What's the county leadership willing to do? And I don't know that it's an appropriate group to answer that question, or whether we'd even be able to get that kind of but it just seems to me that if there's no political will to do anything more than what we're doing right now, and I said this before, if we continue to do what we've always done, we'll continue to get what we've always gotten. If there's no political will to make this change, then we're really just kind of spinning our wheels here. I mean, we can talk about dollars and cents and how old is an engine, and all those things are critically important, but they don't move the ball forward or push that boulder up the hill unless we know that there's some political will behind us to say, yeah, we'll do something within reason, but we'll do something. how we answer that question, I don't really know.
I think the fact that we have this committee today says at least that they're willing to entertain the idea of some type of improvement.
Yeah, so Mr. Gray, I think it's, I'll say it's a loaded question, but.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think to Curtis's point is that the fact that we're all here shows that there is some will. Those I've spoke with on the commission, they want to see this problem solved. Now, there's a difference in a $100 million resolution and a $10 million resolution. So and those aren't numbers that I've had it's just I'm throwing stuff out there, right? So that's what we're here to do. We have to define that problem. How big is it? And then how much money are we talking? And then also too, what is the plan to get to wherever the end goal is over whatever period of time?
So then, one of the other, in my view, one of the other overarching issues raised in the CTAS report was a general lack of coordination. And I think part of the reason that we're getting so many different opinions from the budgets is that one department's using an accountant that uses Quicken, and someone else has got a checkbook that they're going through and trying to handwrite. The only budget papers that I actually saw were pre-printed forms from the county given out to all nonprofits that asked questions that had nothing to do with volunteer fire departments. And it was just a form letter that went out here, fill this in and we'll see if we can get you your money. I think there needs to be a discussion about the direction that we're going to go with this. I think coordination, either with someone assigned, somebody hired to coordinate all those efforts, and not just within the fire departments. I mean, I've had an opportunity to talk to a number of other chiefs within the volunteer fire community, and there are a number of things that they complain about besides funding. I was shown an example of response times and the information that they can get from our emergency communications. There was one particular that I was shown that showed getting accurate response times from communications is critical to measuring your ability to perform. Mm-hmm. And typically, the communications department would record the time the 911 call was received, and then the time that it gets sent to a dispatcher, and then the time that dispatcher dispatches the unit, and the time the unit comes up on the air in response, and the time that the unit says, I'm on scene. All of that together is response time. But there are sections in there that can be worked on and can be improved. If the example that I saw was that the call received and the process time and the dispatch time and the arrival time were all exactly the same.
It can't happen.
Well,
Yeah.
What I'm told, and this is purely anecdotal because I've never been to communications. I have a lot of experience with communications in my previous job, but I'm being told anecdotally that part of the problem is that there's one dispatcher assigned for all fire dispatches within Sumner County. So that means that one dispatcher has to receive the call from the 911 call taker, figure out who should be responding, send that call to those units. When they come up on the air saying we're responding, enter the correct time, and then monitor the radio traffic so that when they're on scene and giving other updates, they can enter the correct time. Well, in between all of that, just because you've got a fire going somewhere in Sumner County doesn't mean that there isn't an EMS call going on in Hendersonville or a vehicle accident in Gallatin at the same time. And if you have one dispatcher who is now trying to balance this call, and this call, something's going to give way, and it's typically accuracy. Mm-hmm. So I think that there are a lot of coordination issues that need to be dealt with, and I think the CTAS report really puts a good foot forward for the county to be able to put forward a legitimate fire and life safety protection plan. And I think it has to start with somebody to coordinate the activities of the fire department I don't think that anybody in this room would be ready and willing to go to the county commission and say, okay, we have a plan that's gonna cost you $100 million. But I think that there are incremental improvements that could be made, and I don't know what those costs would be, but hiring somebody to coordinate the efforts of the fire departments, I think would be far less expensive than saying, well, we need $100 million because we had to buy all of these. But over the course of multiple budget cycles, you can add to and grow that as the need presents. But I think the coordination of everything, including the EMA and EMS, because that all falls under the same ball of wax, coordinating those activities would give this committee far more legitimacy than just saying, well, we analyzed the money and here's how much money we need for that department, this department, that department.
So on that issue, do we need to get Michael Guthrie in here and talk to him? Is that under his?
It would be under his purview, so yeah, we can set that up. When, like, maybe, is it next month? I don't know. Is it February? When we get there, we'll definitely reach out and we'll.
Well, if,
I'm not
I had no
suggesting
idea
that's-
there was only one person coordinating.
Yeah, that's how I didn't
I'm
know.
not suggesting that that's something that this committee needs to fix.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that this would be an issue that this committee would be in a position to show as a factor that needs to be coordinated.
Yeah, if we need more information on that, happy to have Mr. Guthrie come in.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that
we
would be
wouldn't make
wise.
a determination to fix anything. We would make a recommendation to the HEMS committee.
Right.
Then send it to the
and-
appropriate.
Yeah, and let them make a determination on where to direct that and how to handle that moving forward.
But I'm sure Mike would be happy to come in and talk about it.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm sure he would. Okay.
Thing, I'm gonna go back to my organizational structure because I think it answers the question. So it provided 4 options is what CTAS gave us as far as an organizational structure. One of those is continue the current status, no county involvement other than donations, which is currently what we do. Creating a county-wide fire department, and then it gave 3 options you could do there. Contract with individual departments, just kind of like what you've talked about, or the municipal departments to go outside the city limits, establish a fully functioning Sumner County Fire Department, or a combination of options 1 and 2. But before we can ever figure out the funding, we've kind of got to know what the intent is there, because is it contracts? Because I agree, the next option is creating a Sumner County Fire Chief / administrator. And then it goes on with several other positions, which I think those are several years down. But communication is on there. One of the big ones is ensuring that fire department representations on the Emergency Communications Committee, which I looked today, and there is no representation from the fire department on the Emergency Communications Board. Unless the names I seen on there
Can
were
we
wrong.
suspend
off
the rules?
Which,
I'll make a
which
motion.
board, hold on, which board are you?
I know you guys have your executive.
The executive committee is made up of the mayors, then there's the
Okay.
operations committee. And yes, the volunteer fire departments have representation. It's been Chief McLaughlin for the past few years, and he's selfishly given it up.
Then it's the other board that's done through a committee on committees
Is that
that doesn't have any.
The difference between the ECC and the EDP? TMA?
Yeah. So dispatch, we have an operations committee, and so it is the chief of each department.
Okay.
And then the volunteer fire departments choose, the volunteer fire departments get one vote.
Okay.
Is what it is. And so they have
Then
two members and one makes the meetings.
that item's checked.
Okay, all right.
I will say, I did talk to Mark Alley, who was our CTAS representative. He did request that if you would like anything updated from the CTAS report, or if you would like any clarifications on state regulations, that he would be more than happy to come to one of your future ad hoc committee meetings and answer any questions and or help in any way to update that CTAS report that he could.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. 'Cause I know a lot of that, I was looking through that, and it's like 2018, 2019 data.
Yeah, because, and I don't know if any of you, the members, got a chance to look at that timeline that I sent. This has been a very, very long process that we have been trying to accomplish this. it ended up taking them about 3 years to do that CTAS report because of the turnover within the CTAS organization. So even though it was finished in 2021, yeah, we're still getting data from 2018, so that's been a good 7 years ago. And the difference in the age of the trucks and the difference in the call volume has drastically changed in that 7 years.
Yeah, so like it's directional, which, I think works for our conversation. So we'll fine tune with updated information as we can get it. So, yes, sir.
I'm trying to decipher which of this stuff is really important and just important. The public protection classification summary reports, how vital are they to anything?
Very, especially when it comes to insurance ratings.
That's what insurance companies we used to decide.
Okay, now
Insurance premium.
I talked to my insurance company, which is Tennessee Farm Bureau in Hartsville. They're getting away from the ISO reports.
Yeah, they are.
And he said it looked like the whole industry was.
So,
We're not there yet?
I'll let
Some of them, some do, some don't. And the ones that are getting away from it are using their own actuaries to determine this is what our average loss is in this area.
Right, so,
So even if it's not necessarily going off of the PPC rating itself, they're still using the determination of this is the fire district that it's in, this is how much loss this particular fire department is having when they have a structure fire.
Right.
So it still ends up being determined by the amount of total lost homes that's within that separate district.
okay.
And you'll also find out that a lot of the time, the ones who do use the PPC ratings end up being quite a bit cheaper than what the ones that don't use it are.
So these reports are all, I only saw one from 2023, the rest are 2021 and 2022. Is that current enough?
Yes.
They only do it every 5 years.
Okay, that's
And we do it
important.
every 5.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why that we kind of feel like there's a little bit of a time crunch, because some of the departments that were rated in 2021, if you've looked at where their ratings were, a lot of those departments are the ones that end up having quite a bit of age on their trucks, that those trucks won't necessarily count as well towards their ISO now that they're an additional 5 years of age added to them. The same way with SCBA and some of that stuff. If they come and rate a department and they haven't been pump tested in 2 years, that's going to affect their rating. If they haven't been able to do their yearly hydrant checks, like I said, I think at the last committee meeting, every fire department is supposed to go out and check every fire hydrant every year. Some departments have 50 hydrants, some people have hundreds. But if they don't have the manpower to have people volunteer their time to go test those hydrants, that ends up affecting their ISO rating.
Is it the fire departments?
The
that
fire department
test
has the
hydrants?
responsibility to test those
Oh, I
hydrants.
thought it was the water districts.
So and that's one of the
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people wish that was the water company. So especially on a volunteer department, it is very difficult to get people to volunteer their
Sure.
time, especially like right now this time of year. There's not a whole lot of people going out and testing fire hydrants in 40-degree weather.
Right.
I don't
But
know why.
I can't imagine. And some departments have enough funding to where they can have junior programs, where they can have more meetings. And the ones who don't have the funding to barely get people to show up to enough calls, how are they going to have the people volunteer their time to do the extra when they can't even get the necessary?
So the ISO rating, that's one thing that I spent a little bit of time on and really dug in and looked at everybody's, and it looks like it was a fair percentage of our, at least from these ISO reports that were provided, so the latest ones, were at or below the average. So
And they fought hard to get it that way.
absolutely, yeah, so that was really good. But then there was also and this is, I'm no expert in fire. This is a layman looking at this stuff. I was like, man, it just seems like there's some things that could be low-hanging fruit that potentially would help with ISO ratings that really I don't necessarily even know would cost a tremendous amount. One being the testing of hydrants. I mean, that's just time, right? Going out and doing that. So, but there was, I had notes on that. I think there was only maybe 2 out of the ones I looked at, out of all of them, that actually tested the hydrants. And there's the rest of them
And
don't.
some of it, Mr. Chairman, they might be doing it if you don't have the documentation that
Okay.
it was done during that time period or for the previous 3 years. They're just like, okay, then
It's enough.
it's a no.
Okay.
Or
yeah.
if they weren't tested correctly. I do know of one particular department. When I went to college at EKU, I was on a volunteer department in Kentucky. It was actually called Whitehall Volunteer Fire Department. So it ended up working well. White House allowed me to use my gear when I was in Kentucky. It had the same acronym. But they, as a department, was testing incorrectly. And so they ended up getting knocked when they did their ISO rating. They had actually taken the time to go and do it, but because they were making one small incorrect data entry, they were not able to use the last 5 years of that hydrant testing. So small things like that, but that goes down to education. And once again, if they don't have the ability to send someone to these classes to make sure that they're doing it correctly, and once again, if they can't pay for EMR class, firefighter 1 class, how are you going to then afford to send that firefighter for that one class?
Yeah.
And then there's other things, 10 years ago, EMS in Sumner County used to provide EMR classes and EMR recertification
EMR.
for
Medical responder.
emergency medical responder.
Okay.
Back then, it was called a first responder. There's different levels of EMT, what's the proper term? Medical certification. You have a EMR, which is a first responder. That's generally the baseline the fire department will require in order to go on a medical response. In order for you to go and get to a EMS call before the ambulance arrives, you have to have a first responder certification.
That Sumner County won't pay for it. Their EMS won't provide that class.
That's what I'm getting at. So they used to provide a instructor for that EMR class, and then they also yearly would go around to the different departments and do a recertification for each department. And then there's EMT advanced, and then there's a paramedic. So EMTs and paramedics are generally what you see on an ambulance. EMRs are the baseline for what you get on a fire department. Many of them do have EMTs and paramedics, but that's not necessarily required. The same thing with fire investigations. Through the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, they used to be provided someone who, when there was any type of questionable fire, whether it was a questionable fire or not, you were able to request a fire investigator from the sheriff's office, and regardless, they would send someone. Now, unless a fire department determines that there's a high likelihood that there was some type of foul play or there was a death of the fire in the fire, they do not send someone automatically to that call. But the fire chiefs themselves are required to make a determination of every individual fire. So these are volunteer fire chiefs who are required to do reports for insurance companies to determine the cause of the fire, but they're all having to do it for free. They're having to send themselves to these classes. And once again, $24,000 a year, like what was happening in the past, it's just not enough funding for these types of requirements. Like y'all were stating, the state requires a lot of these departments, and they're just not getting funded enough to meet some of those requirements.
Yeah, so another thing that I've noticed, and this was in the CTAS report, and granted, again, this is old data, so I'm sure maybe it's a different mix, or things may have changed, but I'd imagine directionally, it's not going to be so drastic. But as far as like the call types that our volunteer fire departments are going out to, there's 11% were fire related, and the remaining 89 were all medical.
That's a point that some of the fire departments I know have made in the past, where if there's a stubbed toe call, the fire departments are still getting toned to those calls. Is that really necessary for a fire department to be there? Probably not. But when they don't respond to that call, now it comes up on our data as a no response call. Yes, they did not necessarily respond to that call, but was there a high reason for them to respond? Mm-hmm. And now it's going to look like there was no responses, or someone didn't care enough from the fire department to respond, when in reality, the same thing with ambulance calls. Mm-hmm. If the fire department was not responding to the lift assist calls, there's only 2 people on an ambulance. If they do not have the strength to pick someone up from a bed and put them in the cot, they have to call a fire department. If the fire department was not there, what would end up happening is you'd have an ambulance responding further away to come help that other ambulance that ends up deteriorating some of the budget from EMS because now you've taken 2 ambulance services or 2 ambulance units for 1 call. And that would end up increasing the need for ambulances in the county. So why not, instead of increasing the amount of ambulance, why not just give a little bit more money to the firefighters so you don't have to have that ambulance leave their current zone to come help for lift assist?
Yeah, so the question that was in my mind was, since with that such a high ratio of medical related calls, is minors a stub toe, the certifications, I mean, are all of our volunteer fire departments, are we certified? Do we have enough certifications for medical responses?
There's a sheet now that all the nonprofit volunteer fire departments have to submit to the county. And it actually shows how many are certified through ambulance or through the medical certification, how many firefighters that they have that are certified on the fire side. So I think it does, and I think Mr. Shoemaker just showed you.
So this is Highlands, I printed it, this is for this coming year. So it shows they've total 35 volunteers, 24 of those are certified, 17 of those hold a medical license.
Okay.
I know, I don't remember which department, I seen one that had a medical license, it was low as 5. But
Where'd you get that, Chris?
it was in all the budgetary information.
Okay.
So they've got the form that every nonprofit gets, and then they get this addendum form that they fill out as well. I can pass it around if everybody wants a chance to see it.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
this has been a national trend for quite some time. Actual fire call volumes have continued to decrease. I believe over the last 5 to 10 years, they've probably plateaued at a fairly small percentage. The issue is, even though it's a small percentage of call volume for structure fires, the dollar loss continues to increase because of property values and that kind of stuff. The high rate of emergency medical calls has been a nationwide trend for quite some time. A lot of metro departments use that statistic to justify training their firefighters. In my department, we actually took the drastic step of training all 750 firefighters to an EMT1 level. It was a California rating, so it was just below paramedic. But then several years after that, we took the next step of putting a licensed paramedic on every one of our companies, so that we had advanced life support capabilities. The reasoning behind that typically is that, I'll use my city as an example. We had 45 companies covering 200 square miles. At any one time, I may only have 5 or 6 ambulances covering that area. Now, whether that statistic applies to Sumner County or not, I can't tell you, but the reason that we had such highly trained medical providers in our company was that if you call 911 and report a medical emergency, that 911 dispatcher is not necessarily trained or capable of deciding if this is a true medical call, or is it, as we refer to it in our department, just a bad hair day call, They are not in that position to make that determination. You won't know that till you arrive. Same thing with structure fires. When you get a call for a structure fire, that dispatcher has very little input to be able to determine if this is actually a working fire, or is somebody reporting some sort of a false call. You don't know until you have someone arrive on the scene. So regardless of what the circumstances were, if someone called 911 in the city that I worked in and said, I think there's a house on fire, we're going to send as many units. We would send a full first alarm of 4 engines and 2 trucks and 2 battalion chiefs. First unit might arrive and say, yeah, I know it's a false alarm, turn everybody around. We would much rather turn the units around and not need them than to have one unit arrive and say, oh, geez, I can't handle this, send more help. Now you've got to go through that entire dispatch time, processing time, and travel time, where if we just send the units, it's easier for us to turn around and send them back. So the statistics are a nationwide trend that have been true for quite some time. EMS calls are probably the majority of the calls that most fire departments respond And it's because you don't know the severity of the call until you arrive on the scene.
Another important metric, not so much metric, but, you know, looking at those stats, you might think, oh, well, we clearly don't have to worry as much about this type of call as we do this, but there's within the fire service called the cost of readiness. And you might not do that every single day, but you have to be prepared to go do it when that time comes. So we border the lake. The whole southern border of our zone is the lake. Technically, we should have more advanced water rescue operations. We don't, but you know, there's a cost of readiness associated based off what's in your zone and whether it's population, commercial buildings, things like that. So.
Yes, sir.
I've been quiet. First of all, your budgets look in line. I looked through them today, that very much in line, and proud that y'all didn't draw a unicorn over on your projected income. Because, that they're running a very base, tight, squeaky budgets, and I totally understand getting things fixed anymore. So the budgets don't worry me that much. Everything looked, there was nothing that was like, ooh. But Mr. Chairman, I think to your point quite a few minutes ago, you know, to establishing a baseline, number one, look at the fire service as a insurance model, not a production model. So every one of us wishes we paid cheaper insurance premiums until we get in an accident, and then we wish we had better coverage. And man, that's the way the fire service is. You're supposed to complain about what you pay into public safety, but the minute you need them, man, I wish we had more, which takes money.
I want to make sure that Al catches that.
Go back and watch the replay. Chief Edgerton, I'd asked Thursday, and I'm just looking, so I'm gonna go NFPA 1720, which is what all of these guys have to try to achieve. And looking at it, I would say the majority of you are trying to get 10 people to the scene in 10 minutes. That would be considered a suburban area of 500 to 1,000 people per square mile, give or take. I've just taken an average 10 in 10 minutes. Personally, to me, to establish this baseline, we need each department to say, this is how many people it will take. Because we can talk about stations and we can talk about apparatus and gear and training, but until you have the personnel, you can have all that stuff, but if there's not the human factor to get it to the scene and take action, it is a total waste of money. So I think to honestly establish a baseline, we need to know what does that look like to these departments right now, and then going forward, we can start assigning money, dollar figures. We can start figuring out how much in a self-contained breathing SCBA cost and gear and training cost. And then we can start saying, all right, how many apparatus are you gonna need? Is it one engine and one tanker? You know, what does that look like? And are they able to meet those metrics? I mean, that CTAS report, yeah, they're full of great information that can be thrown away because it is pie in the sky. This is where you should be. Believe me, I need another station in my city, but it's still a little ways out. But before I need that station, I need more people, honestly. I need more people. And how you guys are doing it, again, my heart goes out to you. Sometimes I don't understand how you're doing it, but you're doing the best you can. But to me, that's the baseline. And I know for a lot of the ISO will look at it takes 4 volunteers to equal 1 career on-duty personnel. And it's just because a career on-duty person is there at the station, ready to get on the apparatus and go to the call, versus to roll the dice. Is somebody in these guys' worlds hanging out at the station, and so they're able to get there, or is it 2 o'clock in the morning and everybody's coming from home to get to the station, to get to the apparatus, to get back out, which makes that 10 minutes very hard to achieve, but realistically, as was pointed out, our fire loss has gone up, and if you're not there in 10 minutes, it's getting really hard to make a difference. Versus putting 10 and 10 is a very minimum to safely and effectively do the job. And to me, that starts a baseline. I appreciate what was said about dispatch. Please understand, those conversations are happening other places. It just, at the end of the day, y'all haven't found the closet that has the $100 million of cash just sitting in it that we can just start distributing out. It's not there.
I'm sure it's got that tree in it too.
It's got that money tree and the
Yeah.
goose that's laying the golden eggs.
Absolutely. So Chief Everton, will you be able to think you can get that to us, or something that you can start to help coordinate?
Yeah, we'll discuss it.
Okay.
It's not an answer I can give you right now. It's,
No.
I'm gonna have to discuss with everybody, because, the recruitment piece, if I had all the money I could get right now, I'd still have to sit down and think, how do I turn this into a recruitment piece? Just because there's not as many people willing to come do it like there used to be.
And I'll tell you where I'm coming from. 10 and 10.
Yeah.
So I'm just off the top of my head, I was like, it's gonna take 40. It's gonna take 40 to average that 10 people. That's just the way it is. And odds are it's gonna be the same 10.
Yeah.
Over and over. There's gonna be about 15 of that 40 that's gonna constantly be part of the
10% of the department does 90% of the work.
So 80-20 rules, whichever 80% of statistics are made up.
The CTAS report does touch on that staffing, and I made some interesting observations in my view. The volunteer fire departments, when they were first originated, served a small community where the barber and the grocer and the guy who ran the lumber store, they all worked here, and the farmer wasn't that far away, and if something happened, they could all rush in. Well, in today's economy, you've got a member of a volunteer fire department who lives in the Cottontown area, but works in Nashville. And so they're just not available for that kind of response. Not to mention now, again, anecdotally, I'm hearing from other fire chiefs that they can attract some people who are interested, but sometimes they come in and they're just more interested in having the shirt with patch on it and carry a radio and not necessarily want to respond on these calls. Seeb's task report didn't necessarily get into that kind of granular level, but did indicate that there was a trend on some departments looking to provide some level of paid staffing, just so that you have enough people in the station that they can at least respond and get set up while the rest of the volunteers arrive from wherever they're coming from. You also have to bear in mind that, and I haven't looked at 1720. I don't know that it requires in there the same things that paid career departments are, 2 in, 2 out, that kind of stuff.
It's covered. Career departments are held. Ours is, career departments are 17 people within
Okay.
8 minutes.
What's 2 in, 2 out?
There's two firefighters inside the structure fighting the fire.
Uh-huh.
So there's 2 outside ready to go in case something
Okay.
goes south and they have to get rescued. Which,
Routine.
also for the record, 2 out is nowhere near enough.
Okay.
Yes, true.
And I'm gonna hit on this, most of us sitting at this table know this, but this is primarily for Mr. Klein and Mr. Wynn. So when these guys come on, just the state minimum training to be able to go and fight a fire, they've got a 16-hour class they have to do. Then they have a 64-hour class they have to do on top of that. And then they have a 16-hour live burn academy that they have to go and do. And that's just to be able to do the basic minimums of any of that.
They do that just once, or do they have to do refresher?
No, that's just once.
Okay.
As long as there's not more than a 3-year gap in their fire service career, but yeah, that's just before they're ever supposed to be on a hose line fighting a fire.
And that costs them
Yeah, so
for that
the,
training.
I think the 16s you can do online now. I'm gonna say, and then the 64's you can do it online, or if you've got enough people in your department to do an actual class, it's like a $200 fee for the class. But now the live burn, unless you've got somewhere local that's gonna do it, no, that's a weekend at the fire academy that you're paying room and lodging, and Chief Thornton could probably tell what their lodging cost is down there. I don't remember off the top of my head.
It's not terrible. lunch is gonna be about $60 a day. That's,
It's still money out of your
that's your
pocket.
meal.
Get trained so
Yeah.
you can do the volunteer job that you've signed.
And it's more of the time commitment. You know, it's from the time somebody joins the fire department to the time that they're able to accomplish all of these trainings. Generally, that's going to be a 6-month probationary period that they're having to finish all these classes. And they can't even be in the hot zone until they've already finished this. I don't think they can get on a fire truck unless they've done the 16-hour. So they can't even get on a fire truck until they've done that 16-hour class, just to even go to respond, to stay out of the hot zone and help.
Okay.
But Chief Edgerton, do your thing. 40 people, I don't know how you do it. And to my point, does that start looking like, is it more of a, I think we're gonna have to present 2 or 3 different options.
Yeah, I would agree.
And say, so this is what a combination department looks like. So if each department had, like everybody else, A, B, and C shifts, so you had 3 full-time, 1 there to make sure the truck's going right then. What's it look like if it's 2? What's it look like if it's all volunteer? You know, I would love to sit here and say, what's it look like if it's all full-time, but there's no sense wasting any type of energy on that. That's a big number.
Yes, yes. All right. I don't want to shut the discussion down because we had a little discussion, but I think for our next month, let's focus on people, okay? And we'll get that piece nailed down before we move on. So that will be our next thing that we'll focus on. Tonight has been great. Overall, it's the general findings and areas that were raised, but for next month, if we can, let's focus on people. So the 10 and 10, see if we can get that. And I'd like to answer the question, you know, what would it take to recruit what's needed? So is it 40, is 40 the right number? Is 50 the right number? Is 60 the right number? And
When you say
That-
40, Chief, are you saying per department in order to get that 10 by 1720? Is that how they?
We're dealing with individual departments.
Is that how they would assess
Yeah.
that?
It's different densities, I believe, depending
Right.
on.
Different densities, I mean, Westmoreland and Highland are running the highest number of calls, so their density's gonna be, depends on the square mileage. Where he's at, he's gonna have even more density just because, but for him to find volunteers, because there's not many businesses in his zone, so they're all going somewhere else to walk, so during the day.
Young people can't afford to live in that zone.
Right.
anymore.
So, what is it, so I think it's per department, there might be some departments that say, we can do it with 25, okay. I mean, but that's what they're gonna have to say, now, I mean, we'll have to use the 10% rule, they're gonna give us a number, then we could probably be like, all right, subtract at least 10%, that was their Santa Claus list, but.
And there
But-
are different options that can be accomplished. You know,
Yeah.
you can have a volunteer firefighter, then you can have a volunteer firefighter and do pay per call, where you're still able to label them as volunteers, but say give them $15 or $20 per call. That way they're at least able to recompensate themselves for their fuel and their mileage for that call. And I know there's one department in the county that's able to do that because of the other county funding. And I know that that alone has heavily helped their response.
so let's have that as a focus for next month, and we can discuss all of those options. So if recruitment's an issue, what are some things that have worked, such as that, as far as retaining and maybe attracting? And then we'll come up with, maybe we can get to a recommendation for just the people piece, and then we can, okay, put a pin in that. Let's move on to equipment, you know, so we'll work it that way. Yes, sir.
To the professionals, what is the best way that I can prepare for the meeting next month? What of this documentation would?
Yeah, me too, David.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I didn't
Me and
want-
ChatGPT, we're gonna spend some time together trying to crack this nut.
I
you
think
know?
one thing would be looking at the line items of the budgets that are available.
Okay.
And understanding the cost to just keep doors open. You know, like SCBA, 8,000. Cheap set of turnout gear, 3,000. Stuff like that, just to have the other, what?
Kudos if you're getting it for $3,000.
Yeah, right.
I know a guy who actually can get pretty good pricing.
But the point to that, David, is like you said, PPE turnout gear, let's just say his number 3,000. But if Highland's gotta have 40 people, off of what they have now, that's at least a $15,000 expense just in minimum turnout gear for them. And that's for 35 people.
That's why I say it bases off of
Yeah.
personnel. The people decides all these other costs. A lot of the other costs we can put a value on.
Mhm.
It's like everything, you can't put a value on human life, and definitely the
Right.
set of skills that we need these people.
Yeah.
But look at the budgets, and I think the information that Chief Edgerton's going to be getting to us, or some of it in the near future, so you want to look at how long it's taking them to get there, and how many people they're having show up. I'll tell you my personal opinion, that 10, it's still not enough, but that's, remember, that's a baseline.
10 people is not enough, or 10 minutes is too much?
Both.
Both. That's what I thought you were gonna say.
And,
Stop
17
asking a lot of questions, or you'll find all of us in the fire service are like, oh, we don't have enough.
Is it generally accepted, and it's been accepted for quite some time, that a free burning fire will double in size every 30 to 60 seconds? So if you have a 10-minute response to get to a working structure fire, a fully burning structure fire, it's doubling in size that entire time that you're traveling. There are things that you can't account for in there besides the travel time. How long has the fire been burning before it was reported, right? And those kinds of things. So that's why we look to send as many people as we feasibly can, because you don't really know the magnitude of the problem until you arrive.
That's right.
And the longer it takes you to get there and get enough people to actually mount this defensive or offensive attack, that fire is going to continue to grow.
17, 20, and the different densities of the different fire districts, because like they alluded to, number one's density compared to, say, an Oak Grove's density, it's gonna need different requirements of personnel to maintain those different departments. That's one of the reasons that when people started discussing the fire tax, you're gonna have different departments with different needs. I don't see the point, and once again, I know we're not gonna talk about it till later. I don't see the point of having one straight fire tax for the entire county when you have such a difference in the needs of the different fire zones.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
Commissioner Rogers?
Chief, Gordon, do you remember back in our, I guess my previous life, you've always been important. But how many volunteers would you say average showed up when the tones went off at the city? Of course, that's been a few years ago.
Yeah,
but-
so we had Noah, and then no.
Right.
So when I started, there were 7 of us, counting Chief West full-time,
Right.
and there was another 18 paid on call. And when I started, we probably averaged 12 to 14, counting the 2 people that were on duty,
Yeah.
showing up. The reason we went all career is because they got down to a very small, unsafe number.
So that's in the city, Mr. Klein, just to make the reference, I mean, you're talking about Portland, and that's a city of what, down south?
13 to 15,000.
Yeah.
And that's,
So
they were paid per
that's
call
down.
too?
They was getting $20 every time the calls went off.
$25 per
And they went down to an unsafe number, so now they have 3 fire stations, and Chief says they need another. So,
Paid on call works for a while. It is not a long-term,
Really?
because.
I mean, would you get, and I'm just asking questions to think about, you ask what you need to do. Would you get out of bed 12 o'clock at night for a possible motor vehicle accident, car off on the roadway, and it's 12 o'clock and an inch and a half of snow on the ground? I wouldn't.
When you're young, you do.
Well, when you're
and
our
Married,
age,
you don't.
Depending on your
Like
level
for
of mission.
$25,
too.
I mean,
$25 back
For a
then is
while,
different than now.
But then, it gets to a society thing too.
right.
More people want to spend more time with their kids, which is great. Not knocking that, my kids love me, but I feel bad about how much time I miss for the job, both on duty and off duty. And we take our extracurricular activities much more serious than we did 30 years ago. And so everybody does some type of, or not everybody, a lot of people do a lot of travel. And then if if you're traveling, then you're out a hotel room for the weekend, and did you pack the cooler, are you eating out, the team meal and everything, and it's expensive. And then you gotta concentrate on what brings in the most money for your home, because we gotta get the electric bill paid, we gotta get the water bill paid, we gotta get all this stuff, and there's only so much energy people have at the end of the day. And another thing, that 10 and 10, we're asking people to put themselves in a very dangerous situation
For $25.
for $25.
Or no,
But we gotta start looking at work cycles, how much work they're physically going to do in 15 to 20 minutes. And if you don't have more people there, you come out, you change your bottle, that's what's got the air. So we'll call it a special backpack, that's what I always call them, the special backpacks that have the air in it. You gotta change your bottle, you gotta go back in. I can assure you, even the best firefighters in the best physical condition, after 2, they'll try to go back in for the 3rd, and I promise you, that your body says, no, we're done.
Especially in the middle of the summer.
And there's one other huge layer there too, and well, all of us have a spouse. And I can assure you, I worked with Chief Thornton for many years, and there was nothing my wife hated more than my phone sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning, because we were paid per call, and all of a sudden my phone going off, and her going, would you shut that thing up? And then it finally gets to, I don't want to hear it no more, put it on vibrate. Because she's got to get up and go to work, because it's not a single income household anymore.
It's just a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And kudos to you guys. Thank you for being able to be on this committee or wanting to serve on this committee. As chair of Health and Emergency Services, I think, and I'm not trying to sway the committee, but I do think that the chiefs obviously need to do some hard consideration of how many people we need to be on there. I don't know what it looks like, but are we looking at maybe rezoning parts of the county? I don't know. I'm just asking these questions. And maybe do we want to look at partially rezoning because the density's changed across the county? Is that something we want to have CTAS come in and look at? I don't know. But all of that stuff is going to lead into the number of people, the number of apparatuses, how many people you want, and then ultimately how much money is going to be there at the end of the day.
I think the difficulty with rezoning is that in order for it to be effective, it may involve relocating, a building.
I agree, and that's why I said I didn't know if that's even something we want to get off into the weeds of.
And the county doesn't have the control of it right now.
Correct.
The county does not have the ability to determine zone. The fire chiefs themselves are the
Right.
ones who determine it. 'Cause no, there's never ever been a resolution through this county to recognize the fire departments. Therefore, you don't even have the ability as a county commission until you ever do that initial resolution. And at that point, you accept some liability, which you can only counteract with contracts that were offered at the last county.
It's a lot, it's a lot. I mean, this committee, this ad hoc, carries a lot of weight. And it's not something that is just gonna easily blow over. And I'll just say, and it's set in the back of my mind for a while, don't forget in Hendersonville, just about a year ago, that they didn't respond because of an MOU, I think is what the news made it out to be, to help somebody else out. And somebody that we know that's in my district lost their house. I mean, it's a lot to think about. You're talking about somebody's livelihood and a life. It may start out as someone fell out of the bed and fire department don't go. We had one that was in Portland every night. She would about fall out of bed, and then all of a sudden they show up one night and she broke her hip. So, and it was a lift assist. We was just thought it was good old what's her name? Sam knows what I'm talking about. Fell out, rolled in between the bed and the wall. Here we go. Well, now she's broke her hip. Now we've got to wait. Well, is her airflow restricted? Is she's getting ready to pass out? All these other things because we just sent fire department. Now we got to have a truck, ambulance. So it's a lot, and it's easier to send them and turn them around than have to go through the whole process again. Not going with war stories about the dispatch side of it, but thanks to each and every one of you here. Don't take it lightly because you're actually making work that's going to change the foundation of this county, whether you want to see it that way or not. Because your recommendation back to Health and Emergency Services and Health and Emergency Services reaction to your recommendation can actually save lives or cost lives. So don't take it lightly, please.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion To permanently add under new business, between new business and adjournment, a fire chief public comment period of 5 minutes for each of the volunteer chiefs that are in the audience that have something they want to say about anything that we've discussed at that meeting. So that way we have that open dialogue with them. I know Chief Edkins on here for that liaison, but we can get a whole lot more that affects them from there.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Mr. Stephen?
Yeah.
This is a study session, so are we able to vote on anything? This is not gonna carry.
Well, this is just
right?
this is an ad hoc committee meeting, so you could do that if you want to.
Okay,
I
I
mean,
just wanna make sure we're good. I don't wanna have somebody come back and say, you shouldn't have done that.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
What I would recommend you do is just have it not as a new business, but just as a separate item.
Gotcha.
If you're gonna do that.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so,
Can we have discussion?
Mr. Shoemaker, please repeat your
That
motion.
we'll add an item, a new line item underneath the new business between it and adjournment at the end of each meeting for a public comment period from the volunteer fire chiefs for up to 5 minutes for anything that we discussed during that meeting that they want to speak on that we discussed, if it's a clarification or whatever the case may be.
All right, still good? Yep.
Mhm.
All right, so motion and a second. Any discussion?
The only thing I'll say is, we do have the public comments section. We do have a representative of the VFDs already on the board, and there are 9 volunteer fire departments. That could potentially add an additional 45 minutes. That, honestly, right now, I don't seem to have an issue with us suspending the rules to ask for questions from the audience when we need it. So I don't necessarily think it's as necessary.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Any other?
That's a good point. It goes back to the point that I made earlier in the meeting about the need for overarching coordination. I believe that that's what Chief Edgerton's, am I pronouncing it Edgerton?
Edgerton, yeah.
Edgerton. His role is to be that spokesperson for them. I agree with Curtis that I think that if there were questions, that we could suspend the rules to, entertain questions from the chiefs if they're there. I think it would be phenomenal if we had all 9 fire chiefs here for a meeting and, and each of them wanted to speak. I don't see that happening, but I think that would be phenomenal.
Well, I seconded the motion just because I'm a sponge at this point. I'm trying to learn and it's drinking out of a fire hose. So I'm happy to suspend the rules, but I would like to, I think his suggestion is good to have, a post-mortem kind of a discussion if any of the chiefs wanted to correct anything. So that's why I made the second on it.
Yep.
And we could, in future meetings, if it became an issue, we could make a motion to remove that from the agenda. So,
Sure.
I've attended some of the chiefs' meetings in the past just for clarification on issues that might come before the committee. And sometimes when you get 9 different departments, you get 9 different opinions. And
Absolutely.
I think it's a lot easier for clarity's sake that we have the one representative that's able to go to the fire departments, get it concise and to the point, and then be able to report back to the committee.
Absolutely.
it's been my experience, if you ask 10 firefighters a question, you'll get 12 different answers.
Oh. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? No other discussion? Okay, are we ready to take a vote? All right, so all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Say no.
Okay.
Not that I don't appreciate the feedback, but I think
Yeah,
that,
for the record, I respect all the fire departments and their opinions. It's just, I'd rather have
That's
the
not what he told
concise.
me.
I know. Hey, this is being recorded. Let's not go crazy.
I don't know who this guy is.
yes, sir.
What I got for next meeting is a study session on personnel.
Yes.
You would go ahead and remove the study session for establishing a baseline from the agenda for next meeting?
Yeah, we'll study session and we'll change the topic every month.
Okay,
Or we
so-
can continue on if we need to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's the date? Do we know that?
So just what is
Yeah, I
it,
just wanted to make sure
second
we-
Tuesday every month?
So it will be
But we think we may be able to at least start to establish a baseline next month, because the chief was hoping to have all that information.
January 13th.
I think the chief's meeting on Thursday, I think that he'll get a lot of information that he needs at that meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
Chris, what did you say, January
January
13th?
13th.
January 13th.
January 13th. So second Tuesday, 5:30, still work for everybody.
Hey, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Hope
Merry
you have
Christmas.
A really
Thank
good
you, sir.
holiday
Same to
season.
you. Yeah.
I'll be in Cody, Wyoming,
Okay.
freezing my buns off.
Yes, you will.
Okay, all right, so one last item on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, guys. Coach, you hit the button.
You guys want to say that?